So here's my Losi 22 5.0. So the setup on this, the back end's a little loose right now, but I'm still trying to work at it. So first, one upgrade, well, not really an upgrade, I would first suggest doing is taking out these little screws, which are right here and here. That's like where the D block is. The reason you take those out, they strip very easily from the factory. And if you wanted to keep them in, I'd suggest just getting two new screws for that. That's one of the best areas that you can take out those screws. And then, as far as setup wise, I run my battery as far back as possible. This allows the rear end to have more traction because the weight transfer going back, that really does help when you want rear end grip. That's one of the biggest changes I feel like helps the most. Then for camber, I do run, where I run is Trackside Hobbies, so it is very, very high grip play there. So what I have is more of a negative setup. So when you have negative, the easiest way I can explain it is when you go around a corner, or like let's say a high-speed sweeper, your two shocks are going to come up, and when that does happen, you can see there's kind of like a transfer here where the whole assembly moves kind of in a fluid motion. And when you're going around a corner, that you're basically leaning the car, and that makes the wheel have more like area on the track. And then for ride height, all I can say about ride height is don't set it too low. If you set it too low, you're going to end up bottoming out on basically everything. That is really not ideal, and you really don't want that to happen. So ride height, I normally am running anywhere from 20 to 16 because the track conditions and how it affects how you're running. So, and then for the rear end, I am running, there's negative, so I'm running one out on both here and here, if it'll focus. There you go. And that helps it really stay planted, because the way toe works is the amount that the wheels are turned. So mine are at 1 out, so they're 1 degree out in the back and then 1 degree in on the front. And the way that works is when even though it scrubs on the straightaway, when I say scrub, I mean you're wearing down the tire and there's friction. And the way that toe works in the back is when you're going around a corner, it'll basically keep your tire like this instead of going straight, so it doesn't push. It'll more grip the tire into the corner. So if you were to have your tire straight on, it would basically push through the corner, versus when you have your tires towed, it'll grip that rear outside around the corner to help it get around better. And then as far as gearing goes, I run 17.5, so there's really no spec gearing. I'm running 72 to a 30 tooth. It allows it to have a lot of torque coming off of jumps and get a little more bottom end speed, which helps me on the straightaways. And then the steering rack, I have the negative 2 spacers on the servo to help it sit up farther for more front end weight. That helps me a lot with my steering and how the car will turn. And then as far as the rear goes, I have been having an issue with this car not being able to steer as sharply as I wanted to. So what I've done is I've added this little block here. It's a 0mm. That'll basically have the rear camber links sit in more and up more. So in and up, and it allows the back end to sit up higher, and when you hit the brakes, it digs the front end into the ground to get it around the corner, and it helps it really get around that corner. And then I like to run my cars as light as possible. So right now I'm running this 4200 milliamp Gen Ace Redline. It works really good. Normally I don't really take it out, so it's hard to get out. But it's a Gen Ace 4200 140C that really gives out a lot of power and helps it drive a little bit better. And then as far as ESC goes, I'm just running this Just Stock XR10 that helps it. It doesn't really help with anything, it's just my preference with the price and the performance. And then for servo, I'm running this Shift RC LSX. This thing is crazy quick. Like, probably the fastest servo I've ever seen. Then as far as the motor goes, it's a 17.5 turn Surpass Reedy. I run 43 timing. That really does help with the lower end punch. And then for a fan, it's a Motive 22,000 kV. And then as far as radio goes, is a Futaba 3PV. I'm still working on upgrading some of the parts on this car because it originally came as a roller from the DC-10, and as of right now it doesn't have any carbon fiber on it, so I'm looking to get a carbon fiber chassis, some carbon fiber motor plate, some shock towers, and then wing nut washers. And then back here you can see where the wing is held on by. Right back here, I have no washers on there to delete the weight, so I want to get some carbon fiber 2 angled up washers to give it more rear and downforce. And I really don't run slipper clutches on my 17.5 car because I really feel like you ruin a lot more gears. I've tried it and it's not my favorite because I've ruined several gears going through it. So I normally don't run slipper clutches on my faster cars. And then as far as steering rack and everything goes, under here I run a negative, I believe it's a -2 plate or -2 bulkhead. Let me just take this off quick so I can show you. It really does help the front end be digged into the ground. When I mean dig in, I mean when you hit the brakes, it lowers the front end so you can have a little more front end grip. So it really helps it get around the corners versus having to push and drive the car harder than you really need to. So can't really see it at a good angle, but here's the bulkhead. I'm running a -2 for the bulkhead. Right here is the -2 plate, so it helps the front end sit up higher and it digs it down into the ground when you really want to get around a corner. And then as far as upgrades go, I have a aluminum axle housing here on the inside on both, so it helps it it adds a little front end weight by the tires so you can really get a good corner going. And I found out that those pop out a lot when you hit a jump at the wrong angle. It pops out and your whole wheel falls off, which is definitely not ideal when you're racing, and that you really don't want to happen. And then for shocks, I run both all the way far in and all the way far out on the bottoms. As you can see here, that helps it really dig into the front end. It really helps the front end dig in, as I said, when you're turning. That helps it get a better outcome on the corner so you can get a faster exit. well, that's it for my setup on my two-wheel drive Losi. See you guys in the next episode.